All right, it is Wednesday, May 13th. This Fans View Wednesday edition, and we have Carl, John, Lauren, maybe Anthony later, myself, and Steve is back. So let's get started. John, who wore it best?
Who wore it best? Number 8 recap. Mark Recchi won in a little bit of a landslide there, 32-4 over Juan Samuel and Aaron McKee. And Dahani Jones got two votes.
Steve's leaving already.
I was definitely a little surprised the lack of Aaron McKee support. I would have thought we would have gotten a little bit more voting for him. We did have a lot of write-in votes.
Yep.
Who got the most write-in votes?
Dave Schultz with 9. Bob Boone got 3. Shane Victorino got 2. Jim Eisenreich got 2. Tony Taylor got 1, and Brad Marsh got 1.
All right.
So we had a number 8 was a little bit of a interesting number, and tonight we have a little bit of another battle. Some may say it's not. It's going to be a runaway slide.
It's not a battle.
But for the Phillies, we have Manny Trio. For the Eagles, we have that Nick Foles.
That Nick Foles.
That Nick Foles. that Super Bowl MVP Nick Foles.
There we go. That sounds better.
We had a little bit of a war last night, and
we didn't have a war.
There was almost some firing. There was the word firing being thrown around last night. We got for the Flyers that Bob Kelly, the Hound. And we got Andre Iguodala for the 76ers. So we got all world champions in all 4 categories there. 3 of them in the Philadelphia teams themselves. So it's going to be interesting this week for this night.
Somebody's already given us a little bit of crap that Gordie Howe isn't included, but he didn't play in Philadelphia. So doesn't count.
Yep.
Honorable mention, though.
Honorable
mention.
Write them in.
There you go. Write them in.
So I got a question for you, John.
Yes.
And you can choose not to answer it.
I always give you
that. Would you think about putting several out there, or you just want to pick one from each sport? Like with number 8, you had a lot that you could have put out there.
Well, you can, but it's just.
Then they would technically need to vote twice.
Right.
Because they'd have to vote for which guy out of that category.
Nope.
And then maybe they don't agree with that being the number 1 overall.
No, I mean just for all. Instead of having one from each.
So you're saying put 10 names or whatever.
Right.
Well, then
Bob
you got
Kelly with the early lead. Bob Kelly. That Bob Kelly. Yeah.
That Bob Kelly, the Hound.
That's Bob Kelly.
2-time Stanley Cup champion, just saying.
That Bob the Hound Kelly.
Not going to win.
Guys, the show's been nice, and I'll see you when I
There was a threat earlier in the show that somebody may not come back if the voting don't go all the one way. It may not have been a good thing to threaten, but there's a lot of good competition in this one, I believe.
There is.
Obviously, Nick Foles is going to be the glory with the Super Bowl, bringing it, from the Eagles. Played 6 games, but
my mother knows what's up.
Here comes Foles, Carl.
Here comes the Foles.
He's coming from the rear. He's pulling up the rear.
It's going to be a lot closer. It's going to be a lot closer than you think.
Oh yeah, it'll be close. They'll be close.
So Jack's even saying Foles.
Yeah.
So you're in trouble, Carl.
That's because Jack likes Lauren.
Right.
I didn't even know who I voted for yet.
Well, we know who you're voting for.
I know who you're voting for.
Please.
It's kind of like your dad. It's kind of like your dad with the hockey guys. It's you with Foles. But we got.
Hey, Dad, how's Kelly doing?
He's got some votes up there.
So
Kelly was a great role player, but Foles was a quarterback when the Eagles won a Super Bowl. Oh, man, you guys are no fun.
Yeah.
Two-time Stanley Cup champion, Bob the Hound Kelly.
We could have had Sonny Jurgensen in for number 9 for the Eagles.
I know. That's who I wanted.
Right. I mean.
Hall of Famer, 19. Here you go. Caesar knows.
Yeah.
There you go. The Hound. It's gonna be a long night, Lauren.
for you,
It's going to be battling back and forth. But no,
Jack says fear.
No.
Not Foles, fear.
You got Manny Trio, the 2-time All-Star, World Series champion, and NLCS MVP, 3-time Gold Glove, and 2-time Silver Slugger. You got, he's not a slouch himself. Foles has been here for 4 years, 5 years. So he got us the Super Bowl. So we got.
He did. That's a tough one.
But
his autograph went from being like $15 to $1,500.
Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl too.
As it should.
Trent Dilfer won the Super Bowl too.
So Bob Angeli's asking what the criteria is for who wore it best.
Is this his first show?
This is only 9 weeks in. 9 weeks into this show.
Thanks for joining us, Bob. Read the rules.
And Sue wants to know why the names aren't scrolling on the bottom, John.
Because I flipped over. I was distracted. I was all here. Sorry,
All
Sue.
worried about just digging
there
in the
it
holes.
is.
Digging in the folds there. We got to get the screen right. Sorry, folks. We got. I mean, it's. There's some choices to make. But I mean, Foles won us the Super Bowl, so we'll end up going there. So
that's all I keep hearing.
I know. Well, that's what everybody realizes because it's the most
Well, he
current thing.
did win a Super Bowl.
He did something no other Philly quarterback has ever been able to do with the Eagles.
The first one.
And Manny Trio won the first Super Bowl or first World Series for the Phillies, and Bob Kelly won two of the first Stanley Cups for the Flyers.
Yep.
Yeah, but he was the quarterback.
There you go, Carl. Bob's watching his first show. He just found the page the other day.
Beautiful,
Thank you, Bob. Thanks for
and he's from Virginia too. So
very nice.
Welcome, Bob.
But what we do
is he a friend of yours, Mario?
No, never saw him before.
Okay, I didn't know if another
another Gallo
Mario
fan came on.
Another Mario bandwagoner was jumping in.
So, John, can you go back and just quickly explain for Bob and anybody else who might be new on the page what the criteria is?
What we do is we collaborate between the 5 or 4 of us here, and we try to pick out who were the number tonight is number 9. So we took the players that wore number 9 for each of the teams. And then we kind of threw it into a hat, or not in a hat. We just into a discussion. We discussed, between ourselves who we think is the person that wore it best for that team, and that's who we go with. And it's some of them are harder. Obviously, number 8 was hard for us, and in some cases, some of the numbers aren't as hard. But there's always discussions because there's always you got your own personal favorites that you have.
But they're always Philadelphia players.
It's strictly Philadelphia. The 4 major sports for Philadelphia only.
Yep.
No.
Okay.
So yeah.
So that's the criteria. So, John, what's your pick?
Can we pass? I'll go with Nick Foles just to keep you happy. We got a long part of the show to go.
You don't have to keep her happy.
You should never make a decision based on that.
No.
I don't want to hear you afterwards.
No, next to choice here.
Mario?
Sorry, I got to go with Kelly.
Okay, Steve?
I'm going not to be with everybody else, but I'm going to go with Foles because, I mean, the first Super Bowl and everybody waited so long for it. I mean, you just got to go with Foles.
So how many Stanley Cups have the Flyers won since then?
None.
0.
There you go.
I mean,
So it goes both ways.
Dad?
Well, I mean,
he's
I got
going Foles.
I got my. I'm dark. Why am I dark?
I don't
You're
know.
dark.
Because no one wants to
So,
see you pick Bob Kelly.
So we didn't elect Dave Schultz, right?
No, you got
So
passed.
Right.
we certainly can't select Bob Kelly, right? Even though he won two Stanley Cups,
You can do whatever
Right.
you want.
right? But what I'm saying is, we didn't go with Schultz. We certainly can't go with Kelly.
They're one and the same player. Bob Kelly, no doubt was a great addition to those Stanley Cup teams. I get it. But like Jack just said, no Foles, no Super Bowl. He single-handedly
I
put that
agree.
team on his back and took them to the promised land that no one else could.
Not even Joel's.
Well, he's
He's
number
not gonna
7
make
too, right? He's 7. We already passed that.
No, we already passed that.
I'll
He
go
lost,
Nick
too.
Foles. I'll go Nick Foles.
Man, right out of left field, folks.
Wow.
I'll go Nick Foles, but I know next time I see Bob Kelly, he's not going to be happy with me.
And I'm also going with Nick Foles.
Well, we knew that.
There's a shocker.
So,
Well, we'll see what happens. And
Yep.
voting is open until 7:30 tomorrow night.
tomorrow night, yes.
Yep.
We'll have another post up after the show
Yep.
for everybody to vote who didn't vote throughout the show tonight. They can vote on that post as well on our Facebook page at This Fans View. So,
It appears Nick Foles is starting to run away with it.
Yeah.
a little bit, but there's still time.
Mhm.
And again, I mean, you know, it's more current. Everybody's gonna go on the Bulls bandwagon.
Is it really a bandwagon?
Well, like we were discussing yesterday. I mean, seriously, he leaves here. He's not a good quarterback, or he hasn't been able to lead other teams. He's been good here both times that he was here in Philadelphia. So, you know, it's a little bit magical here for him.
Sure.
You know, I mean, he's already been bouncing around two more teams now with Jacksonville and now the Chicago. You know, I think without that Super Bowl, which is a big, he's not even going to be mentioned at number 9.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
don't disagree with that at all.
You know, you would have Sonny Jurgensen, you know, in that spot
Certainly.
for the Eagles, but you know, he did it. He's the MVP of the Super Bowl. He took us down Broad Street, so you know,
John, your scroll's wrong.
Oh,
It
Oh, I
says who
did
wore
change
black
number 9.
Number 8.
Sorry, just throwing it out there.
I wasn't
I know
going
this
to
is
mention
my
it.
last. I've
I
been warned
don't
this is
want
my
John
last
too much
show.
as it is, so I just,
No, it's all good. It's all good.
I've been told before this backstage that this was my last show anyway, so I figured I'd just.
You're going all out, just throwing everybody under the bus.
It's
Yeah.
going to be my last show too if John keeps playing with the scroll at the bottom.
Sorry, I got to fix there.
Stop playing with it. And,
Well, we-
and oh, by the way, it's called a player in a system, and Nick Foles just so happens to fit the system very well.
Correct. Right.
No doubt.
So
Is there
You
anything
know,
wrong with
it's
that?
none at all. I'm just stating a fact. You know why Foles is so been so successful here.
Right.
You know.
I'd love to
So-
still have him. Bring him back.
Well, I know. We know that.
Let's go.
You're driving him right to the airport.
Right to it. Well, right now I don't even have to worry about it because he's already home. So I don't even have to
You
drive
don't have to do it.
There you go.
there.
So apparently Chicago's like all in on the Nick Foles bandwagon because they're not they're not bringing Trubisky back, right? They didn't sign him. They didn't sign him for the 5th year, so they're not
Right.
going to bring him back. Is that what I understand?
Well,
I think so.
is this his 4th year? And
Yeah.
so they'll probably have him back this year, but just not for they're not giving him guaranteeing that 5th year option.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
So
So
they've pretty much brought Foles in, and we'll see, right?
Oh yeah. Oh no, absolutely. I mean, like you said, I mean, he's definitely, Philadelphia is driven by the Eagles, mainly. So he won us the Super Bowl, so he was the MVP. He's gonna, win it. But that's not to take away from the other guys in this group, because there's some other good talented people in this one.
How many votes you think Andre gets?
I was just going to say that, and no Iggy votes.
None yet. I'm sure that we'll get some. We always once we share it off to other pages, we always end up getting a few spread out.
All right.
But like I said, the Sixers was a little bit less following, I guess, on our page for whatever
Yes.
reason. Like I said, I would have thought Aaron McKee, being a local guy, would have gotten more than 4 votes. Through his time in Temple, head coach now for Temple, and also going to the NBA Finals with the Sixers. So
I
that's
would
why-
like,
that's why we did the game.
I would like Lauren to address Joe Stinger's question. I think this is appropriate that she.
The answer to
address
that
this
is
question.
no.
That's too easy of an answer.
And no, I'm not even saying that because I don't like Carson Wentz. I'm saying that because there was a special chemistry. The guys rallied around Nick Foles and what he was doing, and that's why they all performed at that level. They rallied around him and rallied around what he was doing, and there was a special chemistry in that locker room that created what you saw when they won. I don't think that happens with Wentz. Do I think he's a bad quarterback? No, I just don't think they would have won the Super Bowl with him. That's all. That's not to say they won't win it in the future with him, but I think that particular year, that particular postseason was to rally behind what Nick Foles had done there.
Well,
I hate to admit it, but I had to agree with her.
Why do you
Yeah.
hate to admit
Well,
it?
yeah, why do you hate to
What's
admit
that
it?
mean?
well,
Just because I like Wentz. I mean, but you're right.
No, I disagree because Wentz was 11-2 before he got hurt. He was on a roll. He was doing everything right. He was the MVP of the league that year, going into it. The team itself was a lot better defensively with a lot of the free agents that they had gotten. I just
So
I
now
don't-
here's a question: do you think we do it with Foles as starting quarterback that year? And that goes to both you guys.
Well, it's hard to say because I don't want to say no,
Yeah.
because that would be just slighting Nick Foles, because he also played well. I think a lot of it, like Jack's saying there, I think a lot of it's Frank Reich. Had a lot to do with both
Absolutely.
him and Carson Wentz. So I think they would have been able to do it either quarterback personally. Because like I said, Wentz was rolling through the league. He was the MVP of the league at the time. Went into Los Angeles and beat the Rams, who were hot at that time,
Right.
as themselves. And threw a touchdown pass on the torn ACL. So it's not. I believe they still win it without it, with him being healthy. Wentz. But
Okie dokie.
that was just a magical year in itself for the Eagles.
Yeah.
And
No
then
No
Foles
doubt.
made it that much more magical.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt with that.
coming in. It was definitely. What do you think, Carl? You haven't chimed in on that one yet.
I got no comment. I got no comment.
you don't want the
There's
text
a lot of
messages
there's a
later
lot of
tonight.
hate. There's a lot of hate in the room. There's
All
enough
right.
hate in the room. I'm
I'm
going
not
to
even in the
pass on
same
the
room
hate.
as you.
There's not
Well,
even
the collective room, the virtual room.
there's not even any hate though. I mean,
Yeah, there's not
No.
any hate. Do I think the Eagles would have won the Super Bowl with Nick Foles from start to finish? Probably not. But that goes back to my original statement that there was just something special about that offseason or that postseason that the guys rallied around. That's all.
No doubt. No doubt.
So no, I don't think they would have won with either quarterback.
Okay.
But-
So sports memorabilia. Let's get back to that.
So does anybody plan on watching NASCAR on Sunday? All right, cool. Okay, well that's 5 seconds. All right, on to the next thing.
the left turn.
I actually may watch it just because it's
It's live.
live, it's real. So
And I
they
think
don't need fans.
of all the sports, yeah, the fans are pretty irrelevant to the game there. So
Unless they run out onto the track, which
right.
somebody I used to work with did that up at the Pocono Raceway,
Sure.
and he actually ran from the middle of the inner track,
circle.
yeah, to ran across the track and almost got hit by Kyle Petty. Oh yeah, if you get a chance to look it up, look up Chad Cole. He actually called out sick from work the entire week because he was in jail and didn't want work to know he was in jail.
Nice.
Well, they know now.
They know now exactly.
Oh, they found out like a week later and fired him, and they realized they could not do that, so they hired him back, and then found a reason to really fire him, and then got rid of him. He was just a jackass.
Mm.
So
Is it NASCAR like watching people drive on 95?
Just with more left turns.
yes. Oh God.
Oh.
All right.
You know,
Next.
it's funny. It's funny. Just two comments. I'm a big Motorhead. You know what I mean? But I just, NASCAR racing. It's kind of like the NBA. You want to watch like the last 2
Right.
miles.
Right.
You want to watch the last 2 minutes.
Yep. Although
But that's my 2 cents.
if you ever get a chance, if you want to know what it's like, go to Dover Downs. We took Nikki there for her 21st birthday or 18th birthday. I forget which one it was. And for $50, you can go ride in one of the NASCARs. And for I think it's $150, you can drive one. So it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah.
So
I'd rather watch Korean
Korean-
baseball.
I did that, Jack. It's actually pretty boring. Although I'd rather watch it with the Korean announcers. That would make it more interesting.
Mhm.
But what we
All
got
right,
next?
Lauren.
Tonight, we are moving to part 2 of our sports memorabilia and sort of the hobby discussion. So I was able to grab a couple questions that we didn't address from last show, and we'll certainly entertain any new ones that come through. But one of the questions that I wanted to bring up was open to anybody, Dad, Steve, whomever, your opinion on the hobby of collecting and where do you see that going in the future? So seeing how it's kind of evolved over the last 25 years, what is sort of your current assessment on that? And where do you think it goes from here?
I guess I'm
You'll
the lead dog on
You're
this
up.
one. I think 2020. There's a lot to collect. People are into a lot of different things nowadays. Bobbleheads, figurines, autographed whatever. Everybody's into their own, sport, whether it be, mini helmets for football or, naturally baseballs or mini helmets, which they no longer make for baseball. Pucks are a great collectible for hockey. But it always amazes me the way people have a tendency to jump around. They like to, collect, a lot of different things. And we're talking about the Eagles Super Bowl. That certainly brought out a whole lot of stuff, for people to collect. Wine bottles, books, magazines, all kinds of figurines and bobbleheads, footballs. So when you have the excitement of a Super Bowl, it brings out a whole new generation of collectors. And it also swings you back to, and I'll do the parallel of 1960, because now people want to collect from 60 and the current Super Bowl team. Same thing with the Phillies, 1980 versus 2008. There's a little bit of a connection there. But collecting is it's different nowadays because there's just so much. There's just so much stuff out there to buy. Whether you're let's go to Carl's or let's jump on the internet. There's just tons and tons of stuff for people to collect. Autographs obviously are still big. They always have been. But it's just, some people aren't interested in paying for autographs, but sometimes that's the only way you can get them. A lot of people just, they have no interest in spending, $5 for an autograph. They don't care who it is. So they'll go to radio shows, they'll go down to the ballparks and, chase the players and that sort of thing and get those types of autographs. So it's a new age with collecting today versus back 25 years ago. You just didn't have, the popularity of so many stores with so many signings versus so many shows. So it's changed. It's changed quite a bit.
Is it kind of safe to say that it's kind of taken a turn from collecting everything to now just collecting what particularly sort of speaks to you? So, for example, Dad, I know you have every single Super Bowl bobblehead from the Eagles. For me personally, I only have two, Nick Foles and Corey Clement. I'm not interested in all the rest of the guys the way you are. So I think that kind of sort of lends itself to the way the industry is going, in that sometimes people only collect what's meaningful to them versus the entire run. Kind of the same thing with cards. People used to collect to put the whole set together. Now they just want some of the cards of the players they like.
Well, yeah, I think going on to that, it's true, because you got because there's being so much being produced that you almost can't collect everything. Like we were talking earlier, we had got the Topps Now came in. Our cards came in for the Phillies Bryce Harper cards. There's 5 autographed cards in that set, if not maybe 6 of them in that set that you can get. So it's not like there's just the one card that's out there. You have to get this parallel and get that parallel. And like you said, it's too hard to be able to collect. If you're doing the whole set, to be able to get them, especially with cards being numbered to only 1. Obviously, you're not going to be able to collect every card of those. So. I think that, like you said, it's kind of more focused on, I like Bryce Harper, so I'm going to collect Bryce Harper stuff, or
exactly.
that kind of things, which it kind of takes the fun out of it a little bit, as far as to collect, because there's so much out there that it's like, oh, I can't get that. If you're that fan of that person, then it's a little bit, especially with the cards,
right.
It makes it more difficult.
So Sean brings up a good point, which kind of is one of the questions that I have. Was there a particular time period that you knew collecting was kind of going to take off, or had it already taken off? And that's what really sort of piqued your interest, Dad, in starting the store.
It's you kind of got the vibes for, what people were into by doing the shows. And I'll bring up an interesting conversation. One, Jack Broder, he always used to find me at the shows because I was one of the very few guys that brought hockey to the shows. mostly 8x10s. And it started, a lot where people collected, getting autographed cards done, and then 8x10s. And then it got bigger and bigger. Bigger sometimes isn't always better because then you have nowhere to put it. But I think it was a gradual thing. And just like in probably the late 90s or, going into 2000, where all this product started to come out, the teams were doing giveaways. You had all kinds of, you could go to the Phillies game and you could get a program and it was a souvenir program and it had an insert of a particular player in it. People tried to collect every magazine, every publication from that year, every postcard set. Right. So there's just tons of stuff out there. Baseball being there's 162 games and I don't know what the average person, goes to in the course of a year. But you're going to the stadium and, you're spending money on tickets and parking and food and souvenirs. And you always leave there with something. And now they've got, memorabilia stands down there as well. But getting back to the, late 19, maybe early 1990s, when the cards really exploded. And now, where we are today, I think it just has increased. And in Philadelphia, if they come out with one more gritty bobblehead, I don't know what I don't know what you can do with all these gritty bobbleheads. I know I tried to collect them all, and I said, "Stop! That's it. I can't do it."
So what made you want to do this full time, Carl?
Because I'm crazy.
Enough said.
I had a lot of people ask me what I was doing, opening a store in the 90s, in 95, when the boom was probably in full gear and the card companies were now mass producing and, there was a hobby shop probably in Delco alone. There was probably 15 different stores that you could go to.
Right.
But, it's something that I've always had I've always been a sports junkie. I've always wanted to, do something in sports. I was never good enough to play. So, that's where I found my niche.
So that kind of lends itself to the question of, do you remember a specific time or at least a year when you realized that the hobby was now changing from sports cards to autographs? Because when I was a kid and I either went to the shows with you and Steve or I stayed with Mom at the store, we didn't have autograph signings on Saturdays. Now right. It almost feels like if we don't, what am I supposed to do with my Saturday? So do you remember a specific year when you really felt like, if I'm going to stay in this and do this thing, for the long haul, I'm going to have to start getting guests in here pretty frequently?
Well, I think the answer to that question might sit with moving back to Havertown on Eagle Road, and I particularly gave up doing shows completely.
Right.
Steve and I used to be out there every weekend. Mm-hmm. Every weekend we found somewhere to go, whether it was local in Delco, out to Harrisburg, over to South Jersey. We did a show every weekend. Right. And we were pretty successful at it. Steve, not so much, because Steve fell in love with his collection and he didn't want to sell anything. He's still like that today. You know what I mean? He says he has no collection, but he really does. He's got a nice collection. But when we made the decision to move to 22 West Eagle Road, that was pretty much it. We were gonna start to bring in as many players as we could, whether it was one every Saturday or every other Saturday. I think at one point the 1 year, we maxed out somewhere in the 60s, I believe, in bringing players in. and we enjoy it. The people enjoy it, and if you do it the right way, you can be successful at it.
So speaking of autograph guests and bringing in guys, for both you and Steve, how has that evolved over the years? So, bringing in autograph guests, you say really started to increase when you moved back to 22 West Eagle. But, we had Steve Van Buren, Bernie Perrant, Dave Schultz down at 1217. So what did that look like as a guest versus currently now, just a couple months ago when somebody was in the store? How has that evolved over time?
Well, you go back to 95, you could bring a lot of those names in at the time, for really cheap, and you could afford to give the autograph away or put it out for $10.
Right.
That one time that we brought Steve Van Buren to the store, it was a free autograph. Today you couldn't even think about that.
Right.
If you brought a Hall of Fame, Eagle player in, like a Brian Dawkins who just went into the Hall of Fame, he's going to cost you $15,000-$20,000.
Right.
I think Steve Van Buren might have got $500 that day. It's a different, it's a whole different time. Just a completely different time period. The players realized that there was now a market, for them to sign autographs in their spare time. And it was just a matter of how much are these guys going to pay us.
Right.
Yeah.
Steve, how has that sort of evolved for you? You've sat next to hundreds, if not thousands of players at this point. So early on, I imagine for the most part, they were pretty easygoing, but as the years progress, I imagine they get a little bit pickier. I know we've dealt with, how many inscriptions, how many words per inscription, premium items, regular items, inscription tickets, just that whole thing. So how has that sort of evolved for you in handling all of that from the very beginning when a Steve Van Buren autograph was free to Brian Dawkins, where you have 3 different ticket levels?
Sometimes you feel like you're on walking on pins and needles with these guys.
Right.
Because you're like, and just by being there collecting the tickets, somebody comes up and they're like, well, I want 6 sentences.
Right.
And guys get a little, but I still think the easiest guys to get along with, I would think for me, would be hockey, then baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And then football.
And is that primarily older guys?
Yeah, and I even think that I think more the newer baseball guys are down to earth too, but still hockey for some reason, those guys, they get it and they understand people. But I think back in when your dad first started doing them, even when they were going to the Super Bowl and we had Hank Fraley and
right
at the store at the Super Bowl, those guys were like, this is great. This, was not like they weren't worried about if somebody come up and said, hey, can I get this inscription and stuff like that. Now everybody seems to be worried about, is that inscription? Am I getting paid for it?
Right.
Like your dad was saying, the guys were like, we can do this, but how much are they going to pay us for it? But I still think a lot of the older guys, even today, come out to enjoy seeing the people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Not that some of the new guys don't.
Right.
I think Hunter Pence had a blast at the store. I think Scott Air had a blast at the store. I think Carlos Ruiz did. Those newer guys, and even Jay Bruce when he was at the store.
Right.
I think he had a good time.
Some of those guys, I think some of the guys still really enjoy coming out and seeing the people.
Right.
So, Carl, you got 2 questions here. One is, do you have an estimate of about how many people you've had for signings? Celebrities, I mean.
Lauren, you were We were trying to keep count, weren't we?
I knew that question was coming to me. You should have just answered me, Mario. Well, it's a tricky question to answer because we didn't always do a great job of keeping track. It wasn't until I kind of graduated from college and started working a little bit closer with my dad that we really started to keep track of that kind of stuff. So we don't really have great records, honestly, since day one. But a Philadelphia Inquirer piece that they did on him and the store from 2 years ago, we were able to estimate that over 600 players had come through the store. That was in 2018, so that number's probably gone up about 100 since then. Right. But that doesn't factor in any of the shows. So the McDade Mall that we talked about last time, even the Springfield Mall, that doesn't factor in any of the guys we would have brought there. So specifically, players that came into one of our stores at some point in the last 25 years, it's probably somewhere around 750 at this point.
Wow. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
A lot of people.
Well, especially considering, probably majority of that has been the last 8 years.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah,
So-
definitely. Since we moved back to to Delco, back into Havertown,
Right.
22 West Eagle Road for sure. Because we made, as a family, we made the commitment that this is what we were going to do. We were going to push, for this type of stuff, and basically stop doing shows, just because the travel is you can't be in two places at one time. We tried.
Right.
It didn't work. And we have tried, and you're competing. There's competition. There's other promoters, there's other stores, there's shows. So you're constantly trying to work around other people's schedules as well.
Right.
It's just like going to the supermarket. Do you prefer Acme? Do you prefer Giant? Or do you prefer, someplace else? I mean, a lot of times, you can pick and choose. We always have said, as a group, we try to do things, that favor the customer / fan of the player. And a lot of the players are truly into it. They, Vince Papali's probably got to be the greatest ambassador, for the fans, for the Eagles.
Yeah.
For the movie Invincible, which they just showed again Friday night on ESPN.
Yes.
It's just, he's just a great ambassador, much like Dutch Dalton was with the Phillies from the '93 team. You can pick guys. Dutch was out there. Dutch loved people. He could use the money, and he did it, for the money, but I don't think he sat there and counted his money at the end of the show.
Right.
You know what I mean? He had a great deal with Yingling, the last few years that, he was out there. Bernie Perrant, where do you find a guy like that who's such a great ambassador to hockey, to the Philadelphia Flyers organization? These types of guys, who's going to replace them? Who's going to replace Dutch Dalton now that Dutch has passed? You know what I mean? I say this all the time, in years down the road, where are we going to be with this?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. So that brings me to Jack's question. What was the craziest thing you've seen get signed?
I don't know. That's a great question. There's been a lot of odd items. Traditionally, for that's probably
that's probably the coolest thing.
What was it?
Yeah.
What was that?
It was the S from the Spectrum.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Or I remember seeing a guy had a hood of his Jeep. That was the Phillies one back with the '93 guys.
Wow.
He'd be chasing them all around, and he would take the hood off of the Jeep and take it into the show and get it signed. And the same with the S guy. a lot of times they have to pull them out.
We've had
outside.
the motorcycle. A guy brings a motorcycle for the Flyers Broad Street Bullies. A gas tank from a motorcycle. I mean,
Right.
we've had we've had a lot of oddball stuff. It's crazy what people probably the old magazines and the old newspapers that people somehow, and they're pristine, they look like they just rolled off the press. They're gorgeous, and it's like the bulletin piece that Steve had the other last week from, what was that, 1950?
50.
Yeah, the Whiz Kids.
I mean, I know a couple people that are, except for a couple of the guys that died very young, have tried to get that thing signed by everybody.
Wow.
What a cool piece that is. Going back to the 1950 Whiz Kids, the Phillies. So we've seen a lot of different stuff. Probably the coolest thing from the 08 Phillies was gentleman by the name of Neil Peterson with the Phillies glove, the ceramic glove, and he had the whole 08 team on it.
Oh, nice.
I know I own a glove, but I didn't even attempt to start to get that autographed.
No.
But he had just about everybody that came through Philadelphia, from that 08 team on it.
Right.
So there's been a lot of
No, I was just going to say, I think that's maybe one of the coolest things is when somebody brings in a piece that they're getting the last guy they needed on it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like them being so excited about it, us being excited to be able to offer that opportunity. But, that's kind of a lot with the 08 World Series guys, some of the Super Bowl guys. And sometimes it's just like a random photo that has 5 or 6 players in it that they're just trying to get everyone signed on, especially when they have that oddball guy that a lot of people don't have. Right. So, it kind of goes back to, was it So Taguchi was the guy's name from the 08 team?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That most people don't have. But a few people were able to track them down, and they would come in, and their last guy they needed would be like Greg Dobbs or whomever it was at that time.
Right.
And it's exciting because they're excited to have it finalized, and they worked really hard and spent a lot of money to get that done.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's going to be kind of a trend. Go ahead, Carl.
I can remember So Taguchi. I guess he was playing in the Cubs organization. I guess was that after the Phillies? Mm-hmm. And he was in down in Iowa, I believe, at a minor league, and a couple of guys went down there to track him down to get them to sign his their 08 pieces.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, but then he eventually came back to Philadelphia and did a signing, here in Philly. And I remember a lot of people got him to sign, his name, and then he also did it in Japanese as well.
Cool.
Which was pretty cool. So there's a lot of uniqueness to this hobby. A lot of people take it really, really serious. Bring their own pens. Got to use this pen. I know Steve goes bonkers. You know what I mean? When somebody's shoving a pen in his face and he's like, "I got a blue Sharpie." No, you got to use this blue Sharpie. So there's a lot of craziness, but it's all fun crazy.
Right.
So do you
right,
have
Steve?
one?
Yeah. Very enjoyable.
One piece of your own that you consider special?
Me as in Carl?
Let's go around the room.
Yeah, so that segues perfectly. Right. Hopefully you guys each have something, but yeah. So, Dad, what do you got? You can go first.
Okay. I'm kind of prepared. I got my 2008 Phillies World Series bat, and I'm only missing a couple of guys. And So Taguchi, yes, is one of them. I'm missing Taguchi, I'm missing Pat Burrell, and I'm missing Chase Utley. Those are the 3 names that I'm missing on my bat. So that's and Lauren, you took it a couple of times down to ALS for me. Got a couple of the big names put on it for me. I know when you were working for Cole, you know, you went and got Cole to sign it. So yeah, so my 08 World Series bat is and I have a ball also. So I've got 2 pieces of the 08 Phillies that I treasure.
There you go.
John?
I would say I couldn't bring it up with me today. Would probably be like the Connie Mack Stadium seats. I have the four row seats, Connie Mack. But I brought this up. It's the no hitter for the Phillies with Roy Halladay's autographs on it with all the other guys. That's kind of cool. With
How much do you want for that? I need one of those.
Don't tell Jen. Ask Jen, you'll get a good bargain price for it. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that, you know, it's hard to pick down the one. It's kind of like your kids.
Right.
Who's your favorite kid? But
Right.
I would say probably the Connie Mack Stadium seats. I have.
So you have a 4. You have a 4. Are they
Four row.
connected?
Yes.
4 in
Oh,
a
wow.
row from Connie Mack.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty
Nice.
cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
And then I was able to, fortunate enough to be able to, somebody's asking for Jen's number. I was able to get the turnstile from the Vet Stadium.
Wow.
You know, because I was real close. I almost got it, the turnstile from Connie Mack Stadium. But a friend of mine that had it, he had passed away before I was able to acquire it. So that was once the Vet Stadium went down. That was one thing I made sure I wanted to get was the turnstile from there. So,
Steve?
Well, I didn't bring it down. The one thing that I have that I like, but I got a cut autograph, and somebody put it in a plaque for me, but I don't know who. A cut autograph of Richie Ashburn from when we got it. I would say I was probably in my teens or younger.
You were young. You were much younger than that.
Yeah, I was probably 10 or 11 when to cut it short, grandparents lived in South Philly, and we always used to go down to the Vet, and we would just hang out underneath of the Vet, and the guys would come out and sign autographs. And you could catch Schmidt, Carlton, and so I had a cut on a piece of paper by Richie Ashburn. So that's probably one thing that I really like. But this is pretty unique in that I got it signed. Probably all the guys at Carl's. It's a Flyers Wives Carnival apron, and I think it's got 48 signatures on it.
Nice.
From Clark to Recchi to McLeish to Perrant, all a mix of guys who've gone to the carnival, old and new, which is pretty cool.
You have any idea what year that's from?
I think it was from the 80s.
The apron itself.
Okay.
Yeah. The autographs,
Nice.
it had no autographs on it when I got it.
Right.
And then just from being at the store or down at the Flyers Wives Carnival, just got all the people added to it.
Cool.
Mario?
Okay, so I have something that's kind of unique. It is the entire 2008 World Series card set in 22 karat gold.
Wow.
I bought it like this, and it came in installments. Not sure if I want to get anybody to sign it. If you look at them, they are encased in plastic.
Mm-hmm.
So even if they do sign it, like it's got a plastic cover over top of it.
Right.
So
So
it's
it's
got all
each
the-
player's card.
Yeah, it's got all their stats on the back and stuff like that. So this is something I will probably never, ever, ever get rid of.
Right.
So I got that, and I also have my 2008 World Series bat that I'll never get rid of that I need a lot of signatures for. So, Lauren, what do you got?
I'm showing two things tonight, only because Anthony is not here. So this is the first thing I'm showing. This is his. It's going to be hard for me to kind of show this, but it's a Little League plaque that was given to Roberto Clemente.
Oh.
So he actually did own this, and I assume had it somewhere in his house at some point in time. But he was also texting me to add in there about collecting back when we were talking about why people collect what they collect. And for him, it's more of like a personal thing. Like he, as you saw with the watch and now with this, he likes to collect stuff that like the guy had at some point in time. So we don't have a photo necessarily of Clemente with that watch or this plaque, but it was given to him and the watch was obviously his. So he kind of likes that more personal side to collecting. And then my thing, I have something kind of similar to Steve's in a Carl's Cards t-shirt. I don't have it here physically at my house. My dad has it in his store from when I was 5 years old. And it has probably like 200 autographs on it at this point.
Wow.
And there's no rhyme or
Front and
reason to
back.
any of it. Just anybody who came through just signed it. So I like that one, but I went with this tonight. So this is a Joe Paterno autograph. That's not just obviously an autograph that I like, but it has a bit of special meaning to it. When I graduated from Penn State in 2012, a customer by the name of Denny was invited to my graduation party, and this is what he gave me. And this was something that he had actually sent through the mail to Joe Paterno and got it back in the mail from him. And so I really like this. He put in this cute little frame, and he was just this cute little old man. So this is a favorite autograph, but more of like a sentimental thing for me. So that's kind of what I was referring to earlier, kind of collecting stuff that means something to me versus just any Joe Paterno thing I can get my hands on, pretty much. So, yeah.
Very cool.
That's it. Very exciting.
This is now the second show, and we still haven't seen the gravy bowl.
I mean, I can get the fake one that you tried to.
Oh, it's not fake.
On
No,
off
it's not
on 'em.
It's not fake. It's not fake.
All right, here's what I propose because it's 7:27
Okay.
that we need to do a part 3.
I'm up for that.
A part
'Cause
3 because there's a lot of people on board, and I think what they need to do is submit maybe some pictures to us,
Right.
so that we can post and we can talk a little bit about their, coolest item,
Sure.
and we can certainly, talk, amongst ourselves, but also, like Joe Stinger, I know exactly what he's talking about. He's got the Flyers book called Goal. It's a Gene Hart book, and he's got a gazillion autographs in it. And there's tons of people that, that have been on tonight that have collections. Ross, John, Ross from out
Yep.
in Reading.
Right.
He's got a bobblehead collection that you could choke a horse with.
Right. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
You think Jack has any pucks?
Yeah, Jack. Well, we've had Jack Broder on, and he's brought some pieces, but I think we need to do part 3 to. This is a great conversation. This isn't just about any of us, and the store is certainly cool and everything, but all of these people that are here with us tonight, they've got stories.
Oh,
They've got
absolutely.
stories to tell, and they can certainly submit the story with the item, and I think that would be really cool.
And-
Brian,
Well, this isn't Steve's last show.
Brian is asking where he can post. So tomorrow I will get something up on the This Fans View page.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody will be encouraged to put their item with photos and description and story there. And
Yeah.
then we'll share it next Wednesday, part 3 of this sports memorabilia show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this would be totally cool, especially with everybody having a lot of downtime right now. You know what I mean? And we can certainly, maybe we can even pick someone, and have them join us live, on the show.
So Wednesday or Monday?
I thought Wednesday, just because we've been
Okay.
doing each Wednesday,
Yeah.
and Monday
All
will
Yeah.
give us a breather to do something else. And
Yeah, because
keep
Wednesdays
this
are
series going.
normal. Wednesdays are normal
Right.
thing.
Sounds good.
But back to you, Lauren.
So we will wrap up now with our takeaways. So, John, what do you have for us?
My takeaway is that the hobby is just great. People got to get into it. There's so much to get into it. The friendships and camaraderie that you get with everybody. There's just nothing like it. It's almost just as much as with sports teams as well. It's just fun. It's enjoyable. Even if you're not not even worrying about like what the value of it is, just collecting it for what it is what's special for me.
Mario?
God, there's so much to take away from this. It's not only about, for me anyway, it's not only about collecting, but it's also about the friendships that you get or as a result from doing things like this. So, to me, there's a lot of stories out there, and I really want to hear a lot more of them. So that's about all I got to say.
Steve?
My takeaway is I'm bummed we didn't talk about The Last Dance because I spent 2 hours last night watching episode 7 and 8 because you guys broke my chops last week.
It gives you another couple days to watch the rest of it.
Well, now you get to watch 9 and 10.
Because I was really hoping we were going to talk about it because I was all prepared.
You had your notes and everything, right?
God.
So you're inviting yourself back? Is that what you're doing?
Just that was it.
Well, then you're going to have to be on Mondays, because on Mondays is when we talk about The Last Dance.
But
All right.
it's over now, right?
No.
No, the last one Sunday.
Oh, Sunday. Okay. All right.
Yeah. Dad?
Well, kind of like piggybacking off of what John said, the friendships that you make throughout whatever, simple little thing of, people talking to each other in the line while they're waiting for their autographs, become friends, the interaction amongst people. You can't, you're not going to go to work, and strike up a conversation of anything like this. You're going to talk about, why you're in line, how much the autograph means to me. So it's about the people, it's about the collectors, it's about the hobby, and there's so much good. I know the hobby gets a bad rap a lot of times because there's a lot of scumbags in the hobby that try to, that try to get over on people, which is unfortunate. But I just think it's all about the people, the customers that become friends, and the friends that become family. It's just a lot of good, and here again tonight, we're talking about it, and we're going to bring a part 3 out, which is I think totally cool.
All right, Lauren, what do you got?
My final takeaway for tonight is Anthony texted me to be sure that he got his vote in for Nick Foles. So make sure that the record reflects that, John. And
he may need it at this point.
He couldn't join us tonight. He suffers from migraines quite a bit, so he is battling one of those today. But hopefully, he will be back up and running for Monday's show.
Get better, Anthony.
So
Hope he feels better. And with that, we will leave you for now. Have a good weekend. Everybody be safe, and we will see you Monday night, 6:30.
Sounds
Happy
good.
birthday, Christine.
Bye, guys.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Christine.
I will tell her. Thanks.